Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Every Horror Film, where horror is forever, except when you're getting married. Because I'm sorry, we've been gone for about a week, and I had to say I do. So I apologize for any inconvenience.
Very inconvenient. I appreciate you coming back after all that. Very selfish of you. Just kidding. Congratulations, everyone. Congratulate Mr. and Mrs. Blue.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Greatly appreciated. We had a great time, great celebration. Jeff was there; he could tell you it was a great time.
Of course, of course. And we are all about great times here at Every Horror Film. And tonight we have a great time for you because we are reviewing. What are we reviewing tonight?
Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare. That's right. Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare. At the time, I say at the time, was supposed to be the final Friday, or excuse me, not Friday the 13th, you idiot. The final Nightmare on Elm Street film in the franchise. This is number 6, and this was supposed to be it. This is supposed to be Freddy's big send-off. I think they'd gotten to the point where they understood that the cash cow was getting ready to end. I think the box office for part 5 wasn't that great. Freddy got really comedic. People starting to lose interest. I think they kind of saw that this was the end of the line. So they went all in on this thing by calling it Freddy's Dead. I mean, most times you go into the last sequel of a franchise or whatever expecting some kind of surprise. But like, no, Freddy is dead.
Yeah. When you put something in the title like Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare, like people are expecting, okay, the conclusion to a saga. When Star Wars 3 was a thing, people were expecting the conclusion to a saga. I think later on, Jason, the final chapter, Friday the 13th, I think that came after this. When you put something like that, something conclusive in this, look, first and foremost, here's what you're here to do: put butts in movie theater seats. And I didn't look at the numbers. I'm sure they did. And the use of that gravitas in the title, was it warranted?
I don't know. And to add on to that, they went so in on this movie. They actually had a fake funeral for Freddy. They showcased it on the Never Sleep Again documentary, which I gotta watch again after watching all these movies now that I've
No.
seen them all. I want to watch that again.
Yeah, dude.
Great documentary. And they actually had a funeral for Freddy, kind of like a spoof type deal that, Freddy's dead and they kind of laid him to rest. So they did that. And, this was supposed to be it. I believe this came out in 1991. So early 90s. I mean, Freddy had been going since 1984. So a pretty solid run for a slasher franchise, if you want to call it that. And by this time, I mean, Halloween was pretty much on its last leg. Um,
Yeah, where were we at 1991? What was it? Halloween 5 had just come out?
Halloween 5 came out in 1989, and I don't think Halloween 6 came out until 1995. So it was pretty
Yeah,
much getting to its last leg.
yeah.
You're on whatever Jason film, probably 5 or 6, something like that. I mean, all of these franchises by the early 90s were kind of getting worn thin at this point, and people were kind of over it, I guess.
Yeah, people were over it. They wanted more of it, but they didn't want the same formula. And in the 90s and early 2000s, you started to get this trend of like almost satirical horror where people were just like having a rip roaring good time with like Child's Play, and you were getting into the Scream days. So this kind of like almost meta idea of like we're just having fun with it, tongue in cheek. We know what it is. uh don't take it seriously. I mentioned in the in the Halloween reviews, I hate this era. This is my least favorite era of horror ever, is when people were trying to tongue in cheek. You know what you were doing. I don't like comedy in my horror. I like horror comedies. What We Do in the Shadows is a fantastic movie. It's one of my favorites. But when I come here for the horror, I don't also come here for the comedy. And when you start off with such a banger like Nightmare on Elm Street did, or like Halloween did, or anything else, to become a victim of the times of the genre, to become this comedic spoof of yourself, It's annoying, man.
Well, with that being said, that is where we are going to disagree because I had so much fun with this
What
movie.
the fuck? No, dude.
I had so much fun with this movie. Okay, let me start from the beginning. Objectively, is this a good movie? Absolutely not. It's not a good movie. There's a lot of bad acting. Freddy is pretty much a complete joke at this point, and it's over the top slapstick comedy. It's beyond slapstick if you want to put it at this point. I don't think Freddy does a single like scary thing in this film, if you want to call it that. We don't have great characters. The writing's not great. It's a mess. But I knew this movie was probably not going to be any good. I already kind of knew that. So I just went into this with an open mind, not expecting anything at all. And this film is, I got to be honest, this is the first time I've ever seen it. I could see this being a guilty pleasure watch for me. I really could. It's so over the top and stupid and slapstick and just it this is something I could easily just throw on in the background and just do whatever because I don't have to pay attention. It's very mindless. And it's just, I know I've gone on record multiple times saying that I do not like a funny Freddy. I like my Freddy dark. I like him scary. I like him intense. This is not, this is a complete 180 from that. This is like a Looney Tunes character, Freddy. But I knew that was going to happen going into this movie. And I just sat back and I just went along with it. And I might catch some flack for saying this, but I had a good time with this movie. Is it a good movie? No, it's not, but it just is stupid and fun. And I just went along with it, man. And I thought it was just a fun movie. How about that? A fun movie.
This review is about to be a cage match. We'll fight to the death on this one. This is man, I you're catching me you're catching me off guard here with that. Dude, I watched this movie twice. Once a couple weeks ago, and once this morning for this review because I was like, "There's no way I missed something." And I'll tell you what, man. We reference our Halloween franchise review from last year a lot. I'm gonna do a callback real quick. Ready?
Let's do it.
This movie's not good. In fact, I would take it a step further and say, I want to beat the shit out of this movie. I fucking hate this movie so much. This is so utterly stupendously ridiculous and in the worst possible way. I don't This movie made me angry. This movie made me very upset and very I'm gonna be real with you. It made me not want to fucking finish this franchise review with you, man. This thing fucking sucked. I was like, look, first time around, I was like, is this franchise fatigue? I don't know. I don't think it is because I can go a dozen movies or whatever, but oh my god. Like I I knew that we were getting a bad movie, but I didn't know we were getting an abortion. This movie is so fucking offensive to all the senses. And even if I went into it wanting a good time and wanting some laughs or whatever, I don't think I would have gotten that. At least not for me. And it makes me look like a loser. It makes me look like I'm out of the loop when I'm not like putting my expectations aside and going into it expecting to have a good time and just like enjoying the ride. It makes me look like I'm a stubborn or one-dimensional movie viewer. I'm not, I promise you. It's just sorry for fucking having standards 6 movies in. Jesus Christ. You know, this I don't know, man. When you put Freddy's Dead in the title and the final nightmare, I expect some kind of wrap up. And the only thing that I got was a slap in the face.
I listen, I completely understand and see what you're saying, and I get where you're coming from. And for the general consensus of what I have seen online and in the Freddy community is that this is probably the least favorite, if not the one of the most least favorites in the franchise. And I could see why. And don't get me wrong, when we rank these movies, this certainly will not be at the top for me. It won't. But I I I'm not gonna lie, this is the most I've ever laughed during a horror film. I'm not kidding. I don't mean that in a like, oh, that joke was funny. I don't really know how to explain it. I sat on the couch and watched this movie with wow, I can't believe I'm saying this right now. I sat with my wife and watched this.
Wow. Whew.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Timestamp this. Yeah, she's in there yelling. She heard it. I sat on that couch with my wife and watched this movie, and she goes, because she hates scary movies. Okay, she gets scared by anything. She said, "Hey, is this supposed to be scary? This is really dumb." I said, "I know. This is why I showed it to you."
Did she watch the other ones?
No, she did not. She did not. Those she could probably watch 4, maybe 5, and not get too freaked out. But it doesn't take much to get her upset. But I watched this and I just was busting out laughing by how dumb this movie is. And a lot of times when I see a dumb movie like that, I'm just like, this is so bad. Please get it away from me. But something about this movie had a nice 90s charm to it that I just was like, yeah, this is terrible, but I'm okay with it. Like to me, Halloween Resurrection is the definition of a bad movie that's like, okay, this sucks. Get it away from me. Like, yeah, there are a couple moments where you laugh at it so bad, but this, they knew that it was going to suck, and it did, and it made it better for me, I guess.
Okay, so two things about that. One, did you go into it wanting to laugh at it? Like, did you want it to be, let's just fucking get this over with? Like, did you set the expectations for that, or were you taken off guard?
I
And number two, Halloween Resurrection is the opposite for me. That's a movie that could have like a shitty good time with.
really,
This one's not. I had no good time with this one.
I mean, I could have a shitty good time with any Halloween movie just because I love it.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I see what you're saying. I really didn't have any expectations. I had seen, I didn't have any. If anything, I had low expectations because I had seen, just through the years, I've read about the franchise. I hadn't seen the movie, but I had read that this is not really a good movie. Most people hated it. So I was like, oh, it's probably not going to be that good. But I walked into it with an open mind and just was like, we'll see what happens. And I went along with the ride, and I honestly think this might have some of the best jokes in the franchise. I'm not kidding.
Oh,
I'm not
oh
kidding.
my god.
Maybe I'll get into it in a little bit. Believe me.
Oh, God, you. Oh, fuck, man.
I'm not gonna I'm not gonna give this movie a high rating. I'm not, but I just in the sense that I know it's a crap movie. I know it's gonna be a crap movie. It is a crap movie. I had fun with what I was given. It's like if someone gave me like big blocks instead of the Legos. It's like, okay, this, this
Lois only buys me mega blocks.
mega blocks. It's like, I know it's not going to be as good, but I'm just going to make the best with what I've got. So, and that's what I tried to do with Freddy's Dead.
Well, you know what? Every horror film fans, you're in for a treat tonight because you got two opposite ends of the worst possible movie spectrum. You got the ones who enjoy the bad time, and you got ones who just take personal offense to it. And it's who comes out on top? I guess we're gonna find out, but we are gonna see who has the right idea about what sucks.
That's right. Let's get into it. And this movie starts off, and I was kind of confused by this. I had to look it up to make sure. So this movie came out in 1991. On the title screen where it shows like the map of the US, it's saying like 10 plus years in the future. So really this takes place in 1999. I don't really know the reason why for that. It certainly doesn't look like 1999. It looks like 1991, which is when the film was made. I don't really understand the decision behind that, but whatever. I wonder, I didn't really look into this. I wonder what happened to Alice in this movie. She's not mentioned. I don't think so, is she?
She's not mentioned at all. Jacob, the kid from the last movie, is not mentioned at all. Nothing from the last movie, nothing from any Nightmare on Elm Street movie is mentioned at all, really. I mean, they pretty much went number two this time around and just disconnected from everything and created your own essentially original timeline.
Except for one thing, they brought back that damn house in the beginning of the movie.
A damn house that they have not. You've had six opportunities to flesh out why this house is important, and now you are so detached from the first movie. There's literally no reason to have that house at all. I mean, that house. I mean, even if people are living in there for the last decade, look at it, dude. How has it not been torn down by now? I don't know, man.
I don't think anyone has lived in that house since Nightmare 2. And I could be wrong when I say that. But I ever since it happened with Jesse in part 2, I don't think anyone's lived there. I think in part 3 it was abandoned by then.
You're right. It was abandoned and it was boarded up, and it was probably because of all the exploding birds in number 2.
Yeah. Oh God, the exploding birds. So at this point, and I gotta pick your brain on this because at this point we pretty much see that Springwood is pretty much a ghost town. It's abandoned. And I mean that in the way there are no teenagers, there are no kids in this town. And you know what? As bad as this movie is, and even though there is a reason why these kids aren't alive, this might be the most realistic look at a town that has been terrorized by a single individual ever. Because every time we're in Haddonfield, it doesn't matter how many people Michael kills, there are still people that live in Haddonfield and pretend nothing happened. There are still people that go to Camp Crystal Lake and pretend that nothing has happened. Finally, in a horror franchise, there's a point where, like, you know what? We've had enough. We're not going to have any more kids. There's going to be no kids. This place is going to be abandoned. It's just going to be a couple adults. Screw Springwood. We're out. It actually makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I'll give it that. It's kind of Silent Hill, Resident Evil type, where it's like almost post-apocalyptic. The idea that no one in town has kids anymore, all the kids are gone or presumed dead. People who are living there just all have PTSD and know about what's been terrorizing them. Cool concept. I'll give you this one early. This movie has bits and pieces of what I can only explain is we went to all these alternate universes where the last Nightmare on Elm Street movie was made, and each one had a different plot. And it took a one sentence plot point from each one, came back to our universe, and plugged it into this movie. And so we got 6 different ideas that could make for a complete finale that would be a solid movie. But because we have so many pieces of plot details that make sense in a final Freddy movie, none of them make sense cohesively. An abandoned town living with, well, we just can't have kids here because Freddy is just always here. That's a cool idea. Freddy having a kid in the first place, cool idea. Reconnecting with the kid, cool idea on its own. Troubled teens who travel back to Springwood and discover something else, cool idea on its own. You take all these bits and pieces from like first drafts of final Freddy movies and you mesh them all together in this mess of a Frankenstein movie. And it doesn't make any sense, but these ideas are okay. And you could make a movie out of it if you did it right and focused on just one. The abandoned town aspect and the mass psychosis aspect, that's a cool idea. If you just stuck with that and that was the plot of the movie, you might have a banger of a movie. Honestly, pretty cool idea, because even Michael didn't have that effect on Haddonfield, like you said. So, hey, that'd be pretty cool. But the movie just uses that as a backdrop. They don't use that as a plot point. So, damn, missed opportunity there.
I agree. I think if it is as much as I had fun with this movie, I do think that is a cool concept and something that if they took that serious, that could have been something really cool. And it's a shame that they didn't do that, because that would have been like, hey, this town is on its final leg. It's like there's no more kids. I mean, because we get to this point where they're at this carnival later on in this movie, and there's no kids. It's all adults. It's like, who has a carnival with no kids? And that's kind of a cool and scary concept.
Yeah, it's haunting. It's cool. It sets up for a good atmosphere. I like the idea. Hate the execution, but I like that idea. So points given where points are earned.
Speaking of ideas, you know who wrote a script for this film that they did not use?
Oh,
Peter Jackson from Lord of the Rings.
what the hell was Peter Jackson's idea?
His idea, which again is another idea that I like, was that at this point in the franchise, Freddy had become a joke in Springwood, and that kids would intentionally go to sleep and go into their dreams and beat Freddy up and leave him like an old hanging joke, and then wake up and go on with their lives. So he was treated as he had no more power, and that kids would literally make fun of him and go into their dreams and beat him up and then wake back up and go on with their day, as opposed to the 180 of, kids being terrified or go to sleep. Freddy would come after them. So he kind of became a joke. And I think that's probably would be kind of a cool plot point into, you always see these slasher villains as like this top tier level person. The same thing we saw in Halloween Ends. Why it was so shocking to see Michael like getting in a fight. It's like, oh my God, you would never think that would happen. That kind of concept, that you could have went somewhere with that. I think that's also a cool concept.
Yeah, Halloween Ends definitely delivered on that concept about 30 years later. That's interesting. I didn't know about that. I feel like they kind of stole some of those points to make Freddy versus Jason the first act of that movie, because that sounds very similar to that. But hey, I would have preferred anything. Anything sounds delicious as opposed to what we just got. But New Line Cinema, I'm glad you kept Peter Jackson's number for 10 years later. I'll tell you that much.
That's right. So this film kind of gets started, and we have this guy. He's flying on this plane, and I'm like, oh God, we're in Final Destination already.
Yeah.
And this guy, he's flying on the plane, and he's having nightmares, and he's thinking the plane's kind of gonna go down. He's asking the flight attendant to move him, and he looks he looks outside and eventually he sees Freddy on his broomstick saying, "I'll get you, my pretty." It's from the Wizard of Oz. And I will admit that is pretty bad. It is pretty bad. It is bad. This guy, he's in a dream, and then he ends up shooting out of the airplane or whatever, and he kind of ends up. We're at this point where like him and Freddy, like Freddy's trying to kind of go after him or whatever, but Freddy is like on the outskirts of Springwood. It's like he's not allowed in a way. I'm not sure if I misinterpreted that right, but there's at this point where he's trying to go after this guy, and Freddy, his name is John Doe because no one knows what his name is. And they kind of throw him, Freddy throws him through this wall, and he's in between two worlds on the outskirts of Springwood and in Springwood. And it's kind of like Freddy can't get into Springwood yet, because I guess because there's no children and he has no use for it or something like that. I'm not sure if I was picking up on that correct. I'm probably not.
Yeah, I'd never picked up on the explanation as to why there was a glass barrier at the outskirts of town. I never really got that. Maybe it is what you just said about there being no kids to haunt. Again, another cool concept where Freddy is outcasted and trying to get back into Springwood, and he's trying to find a leak. Another cool concept, like I was saying. But why John Doe was clearly there? Why did he? I mean, just go literally anywhere else. I mean, you can clearly haunt these kids that didn't grow up on Elm Street, like John Doe, or maybe he did. I don't know, but
well, technically, he is the last teenager left in Springwood.
They said that 3 movies ago, though. Holy shit.
Which is true. They have said that for a long time, that he's the last I guess he's the last of the last of the last, the last little lineage of time that has happened. Freddy's pretty much at this point, which is kind of a creepy concept, like we touched on earlier. Every either every kid has either been killed or they've mysteriously died or they've committed suicide, something like that. And we all know it's because of Freddy. That's a crazy concept. I think this one dude wiped out this whole town and this one guy left. Apparently, there's one guy left, and Freddy's trying to come after him.
Yeah, it is a cool concept. I'll give you that, and I'd like to see it explored a little bit more. And I'd like some more visual storytelling. I'd like some more like context clues that aren't dug into. I'd like I like the idea of reading the background to find out what happened at this town. That's a sweet idea. I mean, that would be an awesome book. That'd be an awesome movie if done right. But you didn't use that. You used it as a setting and not as a story. So I, again, I'm a big fan of that idea. As far fetched as it might seem, I like the idea of, you know, theorizing what happened to all these kids. You know, you had the seeds of suicide planted three movies ago. You had the seeds of unborn children being haunted a movie ago. You know, you have these seeds already sown in this franchise as to why kids would essentially go extinct. That's a sweet freaking idea. And I
Wait a minute. I just figured it out. I
hmm.
think I figured it out. So they are actually in Springwood. Freddy throws him out of the city limits of Springwood because there are no more kids left to kill. So Freddy is throwing him out of the city limits and trying to get him to bring more kids back to him so he can lure them and kill them. And
Oh,
I could be wrong on that assessment. I could
no,
be.
that makes sense. Okay.
I think that's what it is, and I think that
Okay.
makes sense.
That makes more sense then.
So I think he throws him out because I think he says a line. He's like, "Go kill for me or go get something for me." So I think he's trying to lure them back this way,
Yeah.
and that's when we kind of get to our next point is when he gets thrown out. He hits his head on this rock. He wakes up. He's got blood running down his head. He kind of doesn't know who he is. He's got like a couple of dollars in his pocket, some stay awake pills, and like a picture of like a clipping that says missing Kruger woman or something. I don't know. And so he ends up just kind of walking and he ends up at this shelter for a troubled youth, which good God, in Springwood, there is a lot of troubled youths, and I wonder why. Because it seems like every movie there are a group of teenagers that just really going through some trouble.
And it's always conflict with the parents. That was a big one last movie too, with the girl who didn't want to be a model and Dan who wasn't living up to expectations or whatever. A recurring theme is like kids are butting heads with their parents and sometimes in a fatal way. So yeah, you get these troubled youths at this youth center. You get the one guy who his mom cleaned his ear so hard he went deaf, and the other kid who didn't like his dad enforcing rules on him even though he was trying to bomb the school or some bullshit like that. And the girl who was like sexually abused by her father and so was trying to fight everybody. Yeah,
Right.
you get these who you get these kids who are having conflicts with their parents again. And yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it makes more sense now. It sucks that I watched this twice and couldn't figure that out, but you just explained it to me. He sent him out to go round up these kids and round up his child to bring him back into Springwood because he couldn't leave Springwood. And his whole goal is eventually to spread outside of Springwood. So okay,
Right.
makes more sense. It sucks that we had to do this in order for me to figure that out, even though I watched this movie twice, but it is what it is.
It's okay. It's understood. This isn't the best at explaining and putting things together. But so at this point we get introduced to Dr. Maggie, I believe is her name. And she is the new final girl, I guess if you want to call her that, of this film. She's a psychiatrist, a doctor, or whatever, and she's trying to help these kids figure out what's going on with them, which is pretty standard. I've seen it feels like that's almost every movie. It's a doctor trying to figure out what's going on with these kids. They're like, I'm having dreams, I'm gonna die. They're like, shut up. You're not, you're fine.
Yeah, even though we have a town that's basically devoid of children because they've essentially gone extinct. Shut up, you're making it up.
Shut up. Just shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. So yeah, so we get to this point, and all these kids, they're kind of going through the stuff, and she tries to talk to this John Doe kid, and he's bringing up his dreams. He's like, "There's this guy, and there's this water tower, and there's this girl with pigtails," and he's like, he's trying to re-jog his memory. She says, "Okay, well, where'd you come from? And so they end up taking him to Springwood to try to re-jog his memory. Hey, kind of retrace your steps. Maybe it'll trigger something in your mind to bring you back. Well, while they're on the way to do that, the other three kids, Spencer, Carlos, and Tracy, who you mentioned earlier, they're hatching a plan to try to escape from this place. And so they all hop in the back of this van, as well as the two people that are driving. They almost get in a wreck, and they kind of all come together as the three kids were trying to escape. The other two people were driving to try to get to Springwood, and that's when we kind of get to this point where they're all kind of in this together to try to get out of town, I guess.
If it looks like
exactly, Jeff yawns.
If it looks like I'm disinterested, is because I am. I'm remembering the movie. So they get to this town, it's devoid of kids. They go to the fair. He's like, there's no kids at a state fair. How weird is that? And the adults there are like, children, come and stay with us. We've missed children. It's like, okay, red flags flying there. And then Maggie and John Doe go to the school, and they get basically a history lesson from the psychotic teacher there.
But wait, did you catch the two guest appearances at the carnival?
No.
You probably didn't, because they're not really that big of a deal now. But there's a lady that comes up and she like grabs the kid. She's like, I wish I had kids. I miss my kids. I love them. That was Roseanne.
Okay.
Yeah. And her, I know.
I'm sure it mattered back then, but
back in '91, probably a bigger deal than it is now.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And then her crazy husband was Tom Arnold.
Very dated cameos, I guess. Irrelevant to me, but it is.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and throw this. Did you know that Alice Cooper was in this movie?
I knew Alice Cooper was in the movie. He was who was he? He was
Freddy's dad, or like stepdad.
Freddy's dad. That's right. I knew he was someone's dad, but yeah, I got that.
Correct.
Again,
so, I will admit, at this point of the movie, it's very boring. There's not a lot going on, and it's kind of ridiculous. The characters aren't really adding up. Where are they going with this? I'm not sure. But so after they leave the carnival, it's funny because the doctor looks at the three kids that try to run away, and she's like, I want you guys to find a phone and call the main doctor and tell him what you did. And they're like, okay. I'm like, why don't they just drive? Why don't you just drive them back to where they came from?
You've got the van. You're responsible for these minors.
You've got the van. You've got the keys. And you're like, you know what? Go find a phone. Here's the keys.
Hitchhiking this ghost town.
It doesn't make any sense. I agree. It doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
But for me, this is where we get to when the movie starts, just to pick up just a little bit. We really haven't seen that much of Freddy in this movie at all, other than the very beginning.
Yeah.
But we get to this point, and we get this sequence which we've seen in part 4. I think it was 4 or 5. I think it was 4. These kids are driving around in this van trying to figure out how to get out. And now I'm yawning. Thanks. And they keep me doing this sequence where it keeps replaying. They drive somewhere, it replays. They drive somewhere, it replays, and it keeps doing the sequence where Freddy is controlling time. And I don't think it was done as well as it was in the 4th film, because they definitely stole that from the 4th film. But I could definitely see what they were doing there.
Yeah, but again, Freddy's on the outskirts, or no, Freddy's trapped in town. That's right. I don't know, man. I'm buzzing and I'm angry, and I just this movie sucks, man.
All right, time to kick it up a notch. They're driving around. They can't figure out where they're going. Tracy, the girl, is driving. Carlos is in the back. He's sleeping. Okay, and he's the kid with the hearing aid. And she says, Carlos, what's the map say? And he's sitting there, he's unfolding this map, and he's like, I'll figure it out. He's trying to find the directions. He's looking, and the map keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and clearly he's asleep. And we get, to me, one of the best lines in the franchise. He opens up the map. It says, "You're fucked."
Yeah, she's like, what does the map say? He's like, oh yeah, well the map says we're fucked.
Well, the map says. I love that.
Oh, that's kind of funny. Yeah, it's funny.
I did laugh out loud at that part. At this point, that might be my favorite part of the movie because I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, it was funny. And if you double down on the jokes like that, okay, fine. But a lot of them are like visual sight gags in this movie, so they really don't land like that joke does. So I think I think you could do like some kind of like observational humor in this movie and make it funny. Like clearly, I mean, you just did that one. That one landed. Um. Anyways, Maggie and John Doe they go to the school and they bump into the psychotic history professor that's giving like some lesson to nobody on the chalkboard, talking about how here's another one of those alternate universe Freddy finale movie points. He was talking about this timeline of events that Freddy was responsible for, or Freddy was there for, like dating back hundreds of years. Like the implication that that Freddy's been like transcending centuries, and like he was there for Nagasaki, he was there in the 1400s, weird shit like that. Um, cool idea or dumb because it contradicts the two already contradicting origin stories for Freddy.
I'm gonna say dumb idea. I could definitely see it. It kind of reminds me of like Pennywise, because Pennywise was like transcendent, could do all these things. But with Freddy, I don't think it works as well because the timeline for him and his backstory has kind of been established so far. But I'm gonna say dumb, but I could see it maybe going somewhere, but I'm gonna say dumb.
Yeah, I mean, Pennywise has that locked down. Freddy, we already know two different origins. One, he's just a child murderer, and two, he's the son of 100 inmates. And both of those timelines has him dated about 50 years old. So, no, to say he's been around for hundreds of years, like some kind of supernatural entity. If you had started with that, we'd be on board. But there's been 5 movies where that's never even been hinted at. So, I maybe an alternate timeline of Freddy movies, you find out he's this century hopping spirit. Okay, I'll buy into that if you establish that early on. But no, history lesson would be kind of cool if it made sense, but it doesn't.
Maybe if you were like in Halloween and you were, God damn it, maybe if you were on Halloween and you were on like your 7th timeline, maybe it could work.
Yeah. Hey, I'm open to whatever as long as you play by the rules that you make. And this movie has not played by any rules that any other directors made.
Yes. So at this point, we're in this, and a couple of times throughout this film, which we haven't discussed yet, it kicks back to this dream, and it's this dream of this little girl, and this is the dream that Dr. Maggie and John Doe are having. Such a common name, John Doe. How many horror films does someone have the name John Doe or Jane Doe?
It's not clever.
It's not clever. I get it. That's what someone's called when they're unidentified, but it's not funny.
No.
It's not clever. You didn't fool me there, movie.
Oh fuck no. And you know what else? There's other things too in this movie. Like in the first act, there's other seeds like that are planting, like, okay. Freddy has a kid. Like you pick up on that in the first act. The identity of this kid is not revealed until the third act. So this movie is trying to play up this mystery of who Freddy's kid is early on. I mean, there's a line that Tracy, the badass chick, says where she's like, "I see my father in my dreams every night." It doesn't explain herself like that. There's Maggie who skates over the fact that she's been having recurring dreams. There's John Doe who doesn't know his name. So it's trying to plant this mystery of which one of these characters is Freddy's kid. And didn't have me fooled at all. But it could have taken a twist there, and it didn't take a twist there. Played it very safe, played it very predictable. if you're gonna play up this mystery about who Freddy's kid is, even all the way down to the fact that it could be a male or female, like have some kind of a twist. There's no payoff for that mystery. So I don't know. That's just one of the things that bothered me. For real, from scene one, I knew it was Maggie. I knew Maggie was the kid.
Correct.
But when Tracy said the line about I see my father in my dreams every night, I knew that was a red herring thrown in there by the writers. I knew that was supposed to be like a misdirect to throw you off the trail to keep you guessing. But by the third act, I was like, look, I know it's not Tracy, but at this point, it would have at least a redeeming twist if it was Tracy. That'd be kind of cool. But it didn't do that. It played it very safe, very predictable, and it was a very undeserved mystery.
Correct. I agree. So at this point, like you said, they've been having these dream flashbacks, and we kind of starting to get the point that, hey, one of these people, these kids are Freddy's kids, and they're having a dream about when they were young, something about their mom, something about Freddy. And so the kids, they end up finding an abandoned house in Springwood to stay the night at. They can't get back. We don't know how to get home. Let's just stay the night in this old house. Well, that house ends up transforming into 1428 Elm Street, because we all know, don't you get it? That's the house. That's the house.
And you know what? In case you didn't get it, here's a house growing out of another house. In case you couldn't pick up on it.
Very true. So all the kids go in there. Carlos, he goes upstairs. He goes to sleep, and this is when we get one of maybe Freddy's first kill. Maybe.
Yep.
I could be wrong.
I think so.
I feel like it takes a while for Freddy to get into this movie. Believe it or
does.
not.
Second act, at least.
So Carlos goes to bed. We know how he's gonna die. It's got something to do with his ear. We all know that. And he goes to bed, and he wakes up in this boiler room, and Freddy ends up taking this like giant Q-tip and sticks it through his ear. He pops his other ear off and falls off. And Freddy's just being an absolute ham at this point. It's so bad to me that it's funny, but not funny and like, haha, that's like hold my sides funny. Just, man, this is so bad and dumb. I just have to go with it.
Yeah,
And
see, it's so bad to me that it's infuriating. It's not funny. It's anger inducing to me.
it's the complete opposite for Jeff. So Freddy cuts his ear off, and the kid's bleeding, and we kind of get this scene where I know when you look at it, it seems dumb, where Carlos is running around the boiler room and he can't hear. Mm-hmm. It's just it's all what a deaf person would hear. I guess nothing, or little a bit of anything. And we see the scene, and Freddy's behind him, like he's taunting him kind of. And I know it seems hokey on the surface, but in reality, imagine if you could hear nothing and you have this guy behind you getting ready to kill you, and he's just making fun of you. That, to me, that is kind of creepy in a way.
It could be. It could be creepy. If it was done today, it would be like the scene in It 2017 where background characters are kind of just like standing there unfocused, staring at the main character. There is a very good way to do that in the horror genre with a deaf person who can't hear what's going on behind him. I mean, an unfocused shot of Freddy walking up behind him with no sound and no focus on Freddy. You just see the silhouette, like, go! Like, that could build tension. That could be done really well. It's a good concept, and I don't think I can't think of an example of where that's been done, where there's no sound and you see the threat approaching, but it's so silent, because silence builds tension. Okay, when you're watching a movie and it goes completely silent, the audience, they hold their breath naturally. They don't want to make a sound. They don't want to be the guy opening their bag of Twizzlers in the theater. Everything's very silent. Everything's very tense. So you could really capitalize on that, but they didn't. They just didn't.
They didn't. Instead, Freddy's doing jumping jacks and doing all this wacky shit. And I gotta be honest. I'm sitting on the couch just laughing my ass off at this point.
Yeah.
I know you weren't, but I was.
Yeah, man. I wish I was deaf and blind and dead.
This the cutaway in Family Guy where it's like the Deaf Olympics and all the guys that they're sleeping in their arms, the alarms are going off.
Still no sign of the deaf team.
And it cuts to it's knocking on doors. You gotta be late.
I think that's one of my favorite cutaways from Family Guy. It's no sign of the deaf team.
That is a classic, dude.
Yeah,
That's so funny. Oh my god. So we have that happening, and the other two kids are looking around doing stuff. And at this point, Carlos finally finds his hearing aid, and Freddy's dropping like pin needles like off the top of the rafters, and it's like to him, it's the loudest noise ever.
Like,
And
so get it. It's so quiet you can hear a pin drop.
yes, yes. And then we get Freddy. He comes out with the chalkboard, and I gotta be honest, it's so bad that I love it. And he's like scraping up the chalkboard.
He's like humping the side of the board, like scratching it and shit. I'm like, what the fuck am I watching, man?
He's like humping the side of the board. He's like cranking it like a wheel. He's like, it's so good. And he's doing that, and then Carlos's ear explodes, and then he says, "Nice hearing from you, Carlos."
Dude, zero effort whatsoever.
I love it. It's so bad that I love it.
It's very 90s and very.
And he's like, "Nice hearing from you, Carlos."
Like I get it. So quiet you can hear pin drop, nails on the chalkboard. All right, I get it. The writers thought they did something with this hearing prohibited person. I get it, man. I fucking get it. But I just can't. I can't take it for what it is. Even if I was hammered, I couldn't take it for what it is, because like the whole sequence is like a good 6 minutes long. And this Carlos guy, instead of, running, fighting, trying to wake up, he stands there and goes, "You wouldn't do that, would you, man?" Like, what the fuck? Are you trying to reason with Freddy Krueger? Fucking run, dude. The place is huge. Like,
my god.
The whole thing just like they just stand around and let these carrot top gags just go on forever, and it just doesn't make any sense to me.
He was just trying to hear from Carlos.
Nice hearing from you. You couldn't think of a better pun? You couldn't think of a better one?
No, you couldn't have. Only Freddy could come up with something that good. So that happens. Carlos is dead, and the other two. I think at this point that John Doe is trying to help Carlos, and so I think Tracy ends up like knocking him over the head with something and knocks him out, so he passes out and falls asleep, and he jumps into Carlos's dream to try to help him. Excuse me. And so then Maggie and Tracy are like running around. They're like, "I don't know what's going on." Blah 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 blah. And then at this point, John's still in the dream, and he's like back in the airplane or something. He's flying through the sky. I don't know. It's like some Wizard of Oz shit. And then he jumps out, and he's got this parachute on. He pulls it out, and then it's him and Freddy in the sky. And at this point, John really believes that it's he is Freddy's son. He believes that. He's like, that's why he hasn't killed me yet, because I'm his blood. And then come to find out, he ends up killing John by cutting off his parachute, and he falls on a bed of spikes. And he dies in his dream, and he kind of reveals to Maggie before he dies, he's like, "It's not a boy, like it's a girl." And at this point, we pretty much know that it's her.
Yeah. I mean, you knew from the first act, but let's play up that mystery a little bit more.
Let's talk about Freddy real quick before we move on. I know you don't like Freddy in this movie at all, but even though I do find some of the jokes really stupid and funny, this is probably the worst looking Freddy in the franchise, I think.
Oh, hands down, easily. I mean, you talked about what was the review we just did that you said he looked the worst? Was it number 5?
think it was 5, yeah.
I didn't think it could get any worse than that, but this dude looks like a pork chop that you left outside. That's what he looks like this time around. It's not good. We talked about how we like our Freddy wet and grimy and burn victim, but
Yeah,
oh,
he looks like it just looks like an old man. Really. An old
doesn't even
man.
look like a burn victim. He just looks like he's got leprosy or something.
Yeah, he doesn't look burned at all. He just kind of looks like they bought that costume at the Halloween store. Like, shit, put that on.
It's the best Freddy Krueger costume they could find before the camera started rolling.
Exactly. So yeah, and yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to Freddy. He just makes a lot of jokes, and he doesn't look good while he does. But I will say it does fit the character for what he's doing. If he looked like he did in Nightmare 1 or 2 and he was doing this shit, it wouldn't come off as
You're
well.
right. You're right. There's nothing scary about Freddy in this movie. If he had the appearance of when he was a scarier character, it would vibe even less. But yeah, I'm glad he looks like shit in a movie where he sounds like shit, where everything is shit. So that's fine. If you're gonna look bad, do it in this movie.
Correct. So at this point, we got 2 kids dead. They go back to the shelter, and they go, and this is the first time we mentioned this guy, the character named Doc, and he's played by, I can't pronounce this guy's name. I apologize, but he's been in a lot of movies. I think he was in one of the Alien movies. He might have been in Alien. I can't remember. He's been in one of the Alien films, I feel like.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Apoto, something. Anyway, he realizes that when these kids die, they've been erased from people's memories. So when they go back to the facility, and Dr. Maggie's telling the other guy, he's like, don't you understand? All these kids are dead. He's like, who? He's like, I never heard of these people.
Yeah, and that's a new rule that you introduced in this movie, and that's, I mean, I guess it explains the mass psychosis of why no one remembers their kids, but that's brand new. I mean, when these kids die, people are troubled. People are troubled beyond the movie that they die in. So completely new rule. I don't know why that just started happening now, but we're not asking questions here.
Correct. And I think we might have missed a kill. Yes, we did. Sorry, I'm looking at this. Um, the Spencer kid who's like playing the video games and
Oh
smoking
yeah, yeah.
weed. Well, he go. I'm sorry. He's on the couch in the abandoned house, and he's stoned and he's watching TV, and then all of a sudden Freddy comes through the screen and he's talking, and this is where we get this sick ass Johnny Depp cameo where he's like, "Hey, this is your brain." Cracks the egg on the frying pan. It's like, "This is your brain on drugs."
Yeah, it was that let me know, oh, they're just fucking with us.
Oh
Like
my god.
that's when I was like, oh, all seriousness has to go out the window. I get it. Okay.
And so I thought at this point in 1991 from 84, Johnny Depp had kind of started to blow up. So it became a bigger name. So I think they were really excited
Yeah.
for him to do that cameo for them. It
He's a
was
good
kind of
sport too.
he was,
Yeah.
and that's cool. Um, and so that happens, and then Freddy, it's like some psychedelic 70s stuff, and the dude's like tripping out. I'm like, dude, this is wild. And then all of a sudden they like turn into this Super Nintendo game, and and the kids like his dad is like the villain, and he's like trying to like beat him up and stomp him, and Freddy's like playing with the power glove.
Dude.
It's dude, I know it's bad. I know it's bad, but to me it's just so bad that I love it. It's just so bad that I just cannot help and sit back and just laugh my ass off.
It's so funny because it's like you're converting me to your side of the bad movie argument now, because I'm like, I literally can't criticize this because obviously, I mean, it's so fucking low hanging fruit to talk about how this is bad. Dude, I don't need to explain to you why the power glove scene is fucking stupid. I don't need to explain that to you. It's there. Just watch it. So it's you're converting me to your side. I get it. I'm still angry about it.
And that's fine. And there's people that are never gonna like this movie. That's fine. But I just don't see how people could come on here, do a review of this movie seriously, and be like, this movie is absolute. It makes a mockery of Freddy Krueger. I'm like, dude, Freddy's been a joke like 3 movies ago. Yes, in this movie they really take it to another level, but still, like,
Yeah.
I could see if you were pissed off, like people that didn't like Halloween Ends, if you saw the title said Freddy's dead, you're like, oh, this is about to be some Freddy versus whatever type shit, and it's gonna go down, like it's gonna be intense. Yeah, you might not have gotten that, but looking all these years later,
Yeah, it's a lesson in expectations. As we're talking, I'm feeling more like an idiot about being so upset. You know what I mean? Like it's probably just fucking a buzz talking. But
well, no, that's because this is the first time we've both seen this movie, right? Have you ever seen this movie?
I've never seen this movie.
I've never seen it either. Now, if like when Halloween Kills came out the first time we saw it, I was like, you gotta be fucking with me.
A lesson in expectations.
Exactly. That's right. That's right. So that happens, and John, he ends up killing the Spencer, and he's like, no, you're playing with power. The power glove. So I don't know. It's just so bad. It's good. And I laughed. And the kid's in his dream and he's getting stomped to death, and it's just, and then he's like spinning and jumping around the house like it's like a Looney Tunes cartoon. It's,
oh my god, it's like it looks like a fucking Who Framed Roger Rabbit sequence. Like he's just like bouncing up and down, like with the sound effects. She's looking all around the hallway like it's a Scooby-Doo cartoon or something. Oh my god, dude.
exactly. Exactly. So they both die. They go back. They talk to the Doc character. He's like, "Look, I got to figure it out." And this honestly might be my least favorite part of the movie. The Doc was in a dream earlier, and he grabbed Freddy's sweatshirt, and he wakes up in the dream. He's on like some sleep machine or something. He understands that the power of dreams like is whatever. Like some of the other doctors, or it's important. He comes back from this dream. He goes, I figured out how to kill him. You got to bring him into the real world.
Oh yeah, Nancy figured it out 6 movies ago.
You just now figured that out? Is that right?
Dude just broke the system, man.
Have they not done that in every other movie?
Every movie, dude.
we got to bring him into the real world.
Thanks for explaining that to the audience.
This guy, he's got it going on. He knows what to do. That's like, I don't know. That honestly was my least favorite part of this movie. Was like, really, you're gonna go there.
And how serious he was about it. Like, at this point, like, dude, double down on the ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, just embrace it. Like, stop trying to have. There's no conflict here. There's no gravitas. There's no weight to what you're saying. It's like, all we have to do is go to sleep, and we grab him, and we can pull him into the real world. We can kill him. It's like,
correct,
bro. This guy's fucking playing with the power, dude. Come on, man. Just come on.
Yeah. At that point, you should have been like, just come up with the most outrageous thing possible, like how we're gonna be. You should have just said, you know what, we need a dog to piss on him, because that would have actually been funny, because that actually happened. But at least that was funny, as opposed to bringing him in the real world.
It's like, dude, if that's the most grounded thing in this movie, shut the hell up.
So Maggie's like, all right, I gotta go in and get him. So we've seen this movie before, literally. She goes into the dream. She's going to get Freddy, except this time she's got this device on or whatever, in these 3D glasses, which apparently this movie was released in 3D. But
you couldn't tell?
I could, but apparently it's like the last like 10 minutes of the movie are actually 3D.
Yep.
Especially at the very ending, which we'll get to in a second. But so yeah, it was released in 3D. And you know what? I always wondered this. Some movies like Friday the 13th, part 3 in 3D in this movie, there are some movies that you could buy at the time, and you probably still can if you can find them. You could buy the actual 3D version, but you have to have a 3D television to watch it. And my thought process is who the hell has a 3D TV?
Yeah, they movie theaters were 3D back then, but dude, TVs were a giant box in 1991. You're not getting 3D television back then. You're doing it for the theater experience. You're here to put butts in seats and to have a good time in the theater. That's all that matters. DVD sales, VHS sales, I don't think they matter at this point. 3D 3D was a huge movie theater gimmick for a while.
Yeah.
It's pretty much gone away now, but as soon as those 3D glasses came out in the movie, I'm like, oh, here's the part where you're supposed to put on your 3D glasses in the theater. Oh, okay. Ugh.
I will say this though. I did see, God, I don't know. I was at like Myrtle Beach at like Sea World or something like that. Not Sea World, whatever it was. And we went to the theater and we saw this like movie in like IMAX, like 4D. And I gotta
Yeah.
say, I was a kid. I feel like if you see the right movie where you know, like, yeah, I'm here to see the 3D part and you actually experience it, and it's good, that could be fun.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it doesn't matter what age you are. I mean, my first 3D movie was when I was like 4, and
Yeah.
it was at an IMAX theater. It was like some movie about dinosaurs, some T-Rex movie where the T-Rex was 3D and it came out when you're 4 and when you're in the 2000, like when you're in the year 2000, yeah, it's cool as shit. I 3D nowadays, if you want. I mean, I saw Avatar in 3D and the sequel, but it's eh, I don't know, man. If you want to go to a movie and have a crazy good time, like in 3D, do it, man. Like movies like Avatar, yeah, have a good time in 3D. But I wouldn't imagine Saw did this too. The last Saw movie was one of its big gimmicks was in
Yeah.
3D, where the guts pop out at you. And Rob Zombie was trying to do Halloween 3D, and
Oh god.
it's gimmicky. It's super gimmicky, and I don't know that horror is the best place for it. If you want it, fine, whatever. But you got to keep in mind that people are going to be watching this majority of the time, not in 3D. So make sure you look good other than that.
So yes. So at this point, she's going in. She's got the 3D glasses on, and she takes a trip into Freddy's mind. And I gotta be honest, I think Freddy honestly probably has, and I think we said this in the first film. I think he's got, to me, the best backstory out of any slasher villain. It's very, it makes sense. There's not a ton there, but hey, this guy was a child murderer. He was burned by these parents. He's come back for revenge to kill him. That's it. That's short, concise, and it makes sense, and I like it. I like Freddy's backstory. In this movie, we get even more of that, but I'm not going to say it was like, oh, I understand why Freddy is the way he is now. I didn't need to know that, but I was okay with it. I didn't really like the scene where he was a kid, like killing the hamster. That was kind of dumb. But the scene where like he's growing up and he's like cutting himself, and Alice Cooper comes down and starts slapping him with the belt. And then we finally get to see the full dream where it was the little girl, and Freddy accidentally kills his mom, and she walks in the shed where he's got all his gloves and all this like great. That was I kind of like that. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and that's another one that I said in the beginning. Well, in the multiverse of good Freddy finale movies, that's another one where we see a lot of backstory, where we see the origin, where we see more of Freddy before the burn, where we see Freddy growing up. I would love a Freddy prequel movie. Honestly, I wouldn't mind it, like Halloween 2007 or some other things. I think if anyone deserves it, I think Freddy does.
Correct.
The problem is we get it in this movie, which has not only invented this story about him having a long lost kid, but has also invented these sperm looking dream demons oh, that's the reason he does what he does. And when he was getting burned by the parents, he was like, take me, I want to be super, shut the fuck up. It's one thing to have a child murderer who gets burned by the parents and comes back for revenge on their kids. Sweet. Very original. Bastard son of 100 maniacs who was born deformed and evil and has always been that way. Lots of holes in that one. Whatever. Both those at the same time. Man, I guess. Now you get to the point where he's like these flying demons who speak English flew into him as he was getting burned for his crimes. All that together at the same time, overlapping. You tried to make this origin story triple decker sandwich and it didn't work. I said it before, when you introduced the Amanda Kruger ideas, you put a hat on a hat. This movie puts a third hat on top of those two hats. Like this is it's stupid, man. Just like solidify the bastard son story and the child murderer story. Solidify the connection there without demons, and I think you'll be okay. But you had to invent this child story. You had to invent this supernatural entity story, and the last chapter of your story. Whatever, dude.
I see. I agree. So we figure out that, yes, Freddy is the dad of Maggie, and she was a little girl. She saw him kill her mom. He was like, "You're not going to tell on you." She's like, "I won't tell." And, they go into the dream and they fight each other, and she brings them out. They have, honestly, maybe one of the worst fight scenes I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And then, you mentioned the dream demons. Freddy's like, "They're the ones who gave me this job." It's very Halloween 6, like where Michael is controlled by the Cult of Thorn. But anyway, so they end up fighting each other. They're battling. She sticks him up against the wall with some daggers or whatever, and then she takes the glove, and it's the first time it's really funny because she takes this glove. She looks like she's gonna do something with it. She's like, yeah, and then she just starts like walking up like this. That's what you're gonna do? I would run full force with that thing. So she walks up and she sticks Freddy with it, and they throw a pipe bomb in there because earlier in the movie the kid made the pipe bomb, Spencer, and they stick it in Freddy's chest, his mouth or something, and then he blows up. His head blows up in 3D, and I think that's it.
That's it. That's it.
And then the demons fly out, and Freddy's dead.
Freddy's dead. You got what you came for, I guess.
You got what you came for. Freddy is dead. This is the final nightmare, which means this is the last movie that we're going to review. Just kidding. There will be more. But as for now, this is the final nightmare. Freddy's dead, 1991. Jeff, I'm very interested to see what you give this movie. I'll let you take it away.
Look, let me reference when we reviewed a Halloween franchise yet again. 3 movies in that franchise I gave in the F range. Halloween Resurrection, Halloween 2, 2009, and Halloween Kills. And I gave them all Fs for 3 vastly different reasons.
You gave Halloween Kills an F? I must not remember that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I gave Halloween Kills a flat F. Or an F+, something like that.
F+.
Yeah. I know I gave Rob Zombies 2 an F-. I know that. But I gave them all Fs, but for different reasons, because they all 3, although I hated all 3, or I had negative feelings about all 3, they all 3 had different subcategories of negative feelings. Halloween Resurrection was this type of bad, ridiculous, so bad it's funny nonsense waste of my time, which is not my it's not my cup of tea, obviously, and that is most closely similar to what I'm feeling here. But the other 2, I gave Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, 2009 an F- because it didn't matter. It was the end of a timeline that wasn't going anywhere else. It was going to get rebooted a couple years later. It literally didn't matter. So I could I'm never going to watch it again. So therefore, it's a fucking waste of my life. Halloween Kills, I gave an F because it made me angry at how bad it was. Because it mattered. The timeline is still relevant. It hasn't been retconned yet. And until something is retconned out of existence, I have to take it as concrete. This is the story. This is what we know. So, with that being said, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare is a combination of all three of those vices. It's so shitty, it's ridiculous, which I don't like. It doesn't have Halloween 2 2009's aspect of it doesn't matter because it matters. It's the only Freddy timeline that we have. It is the conclusion of Freddy's story. So it matters. So therefore, it has a Halloween Kills vibe, which is I'm angry that this matters. I'm angry that this is what I have. This is what I'm stuck with. I don't have anything retconning it out of existence yet. I'm stuck with this. I'm pissed. I didn't enjoy it. This is not for me. It might be for some people, but this movie is booty butt ass. I'll never ever watch it again. If I ever marathon this franchise again, I'll skip right over this one. I said I give movies 3 strikes. I watched this twice. I'm not giving it a third chance. This movie sucks balls. I hate this movie so much, and yes, I had the revelation about halfway through this review and hearing you talk about it, where I realized that I was being stubborn about hating it and being so angry about it and letting it get to me, because you're supposed to just buckle up and take it for what it is. I guess I just haven't learned how to do that yet. It ain't for me. I wanted a conclusion of Freddy. I wanted a wrap up. I wanted some kind of fan service. I wanted some kind of reward for sitting through all this. And I got none of it. I just got a slap in the face. And to add salt to the wound, I got a compilation of all the kills from better movies right after that. So, no, man, this movie, this is quite possibly one of my least favorite movies I've ever seen in my life. Any genre. I thought Jason X took the cake for horror movies I hated, but no, man. Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare is easily one of the most dislikable movies I've ever seen in my life. And that's just because I like my Freddy serious. Sorry. Hey, sorry. Sorry for not wanting to feel like a fucking idiot. But, it is what it is. I'm not going to give you my 4 golden rules because you suck balls. This is an F. This is a flat F. I'm not going to give you an F minus because it does have that aspect of you can have a rip roaring good time with it. That's not for me. It's not an F plus because this movie sucks balls. It's a flat F.
Wow. I was expecting maybe something a little lighter, since it looked like you were maybe gonna turn the.
I had a change of heart. I went from F minus to flat F.
Okay, well, that's fine. I am gonna give this movie a flat D. I'm gonna give it a D. I'm not gonna give it
You gave 5 a D minus. Come on.
I'll be honest. I like this more than 5. I do. I fucking hated 5. 5 was just boring to me. This movie is not good. Okay, we all know that. If you haven't figured that out by this review, then start it over and watch it again. Thank you. This is not a good movie. It was never meant to be a good movie, and it never will be a good movie. However, there are some really funny lines in this movie that I find hilarious. There are some really over the top Freddy stuff that is just so dumb that it's funny. Like at the very end when she sticks the dynamite in him, he goes, "Kids." I'm sorry. Maybe that's just my kind of humor. I like really dumb stuff. And I just, like I said, we all know this movie's not good, but I put this on knowing it wasn't going to be good. I didn't expect it to be. And I got some funny jokes out of it. I laughed a little bit. I had a good time. I didn't take it seriously. And for anyone that absolutely hates this movie like Jeff and is going to give it an F, I completely understand, because if this was 1991 and I've been to like every Freddy movie since, and this is the last one I got and didn't know there was going to be more, I'd be pissed too. This probably would get like a triple F. Yeah. But hindsight is 2020. Knowing what I know now, knowing that there are other films after this, I could take it what it is. I know it sucks, but it's one of those where I feel like I could get drunk and just laugh. And for that reason, I'm just going to give it a flat D.
Fair enough. And you know what? I can't argue it. You are on the right side of this argument here. I am taking it too seriously. I didn't have my expectations checked at the door. Even with 30 years of hindsight, it's my own damn fault for getting upset about this. It's just what it is. You are absolutely correct in this. I am wrong. I will admit that. I'm still never watching this damn thing ever again.
That's fine. That's fine. I don't know if I'll ever go out of my way to watch this.
No.
I think if it's ever on, I might watch it, or if I'm ever doing a marathon of these movies again, who knows? But as we know and would come to find out, this is not the final nightmare. There is, in fact, a new nightmare. And I feel like Jeff is really going to enjoy this movie. I just have a feeling that he is. It's been a long time since I've seen New Nightmare. It really has.
Yeah, New Nightmare, for what I remember, is a complete detachment from the timeline. We don't get a new timeline like Halloween would do. We don't get a new timeline with this. It's kind of just like a different iteration of Freddy. So I'm not going to say anything more about that because I do have my opinions on New Nightmare. And I'm going to save it for that review because I am very excited to talk about that one.
Well, here's what I'm excited about. You have told me that we have not gotten to the best Freddy movie yet. Is that still the case, in your opinion?
I'm going to tell you what. I got opinions, man.
I swear.
And I got facts to back them up, dog.
If we get to New Nightmare and it's not the movie you're talking about, there's only one movie left. That might be the most heated review in YouTube history, if you know what I'm talking about. And I'm just going to leave it there because we've only got 2 movies to go. We got New Nightmare, we got the remake. We're not doing Freddy versus Jason. We're going to wait till we do the Jason movies as well before we do that.
Yep, we got New Nightmare and we got the 2009 remake. And one of those 2 movies I feel very passionately about. And I'm excited for the conclusion of this review franchise. Let's put it that way, man.
Man, wow. I almost want to stop now. I don't even want to go any further. But we will, because that's what we do, because we are every horror film and we try to watch and review every horror film because horror is forever. Thank you so much for sticking with us here and joining us on the Freddy Krueger Nightmare Train. Check out the rest of our series if you haven't done so yet. And we will see you next time on A New Nightmare.
The mummy has now been located.
The living mummy. The living mummy.
Bullets won't stop.
Some creature out of time.
That was horrible. That was horrible.
He's completely out of control.
I saw those bodies.
Is he a man or a monster?
You actually knew a werewolf in a peaceful town where nothing ever happened.
That was horrible. That was horrible.
In the mystical regions of Transylvania.